I'm Warren Sprouse. It is Sunday night, January 28, 2018, and we're on the Bible Forum. We're looking at some short shots, some things that came up this week under social issues. 11 American elementary and high schools have been the scene of deadly shootings just in the last calendar year. Teenagers seem to feel the need to take a gun and shoot their fellow students, killing a number of them. What is their moral orientation? What is their spiritual orientation? What is their social orientation? After this was printed up for tonight, there have been at least 2 more shootings by teenagers. Is it going to continue? Is it an anomaly? Is there something underneath that's feeding this? And you know there is. It is not biblical Christianity. It is not Bible-based government controls. It comes from people creating realities, artificial realities, in terms of the definition of family, in terms of sex or drugs or who knows what, movies, all sorts of things, the technology in your hand and the rest of it. It's not good. On Thursday, the United States Department of Health and Human Services announced it created a Conscience and Religious Freedom Division, and it did so within the Office of Civil Rights. The HHS Office of Civil Rights Director said the new division will help guarantee that victims of unlawful discrimination find justice. Laws protecting religious freedom and conscience rights are just empty words on paper if they are not enforced, he added. The move will likely have implications for medical providers who for religious reasons oppose performing abortions and transgender surgeries. Sounds like progress to me. Since you've been able to understand the language and understand what's being said by that language, you have been told that 2 wrongs don't make a right. Well, city leaders in San Francisco voted on Tuesday to recognize the second Monday in October as Indigenous Peoples Day. You do know what the second Monday in October is this year. It's Columbus Day. The San Francisco Board of Supervisors voted 10-1 for the ordinance, with the sole dissenter being from an historically Italian neighborhood. The article went on to point out that Christopher Columbus was an Italian. The city recognizes the historic discrimination and violence inflicted upon indigenous peoples in the United States, including their forced removal from ancestral lands and the deliberate and systematic destruction of their communities and culture. It is true. All of that happened. But it is quite doubtful that Native American culture would have brought the wealth, prestige, living standards, medical and other progress of things that have occurred where Europeans did. Nobody said it was right. But look around the world, that sort of thing has happened everywhere. And it wasn't always Europeans doing it. I'm old. I have always thought that English, the language, was America's official language. Didn't you? Well, now there's a movement to make English the official language in all government documents and public discourse. 32 states have adopted legislation or a constitutional amendment to that effect. Why? Well, because we currently produce legal and public documents in 50 different languages. While in California, their school teachers speak over 100 different languages. I thought it was over 200. And I thought I was being conservative. You gotta love California. Michigan State Representative Lee Chatfield, a Republican, explained why he's behind the move in his state. He says, I think it's important that we attempt to be unified in this state. How about the country? He says it simply puts into legislation something that's already a reality in the state. States that have English-only laws are Alabama, Alaska, Arizona, Arkansas, California, Colorado, Florida, Georgia, Hawaii, little Arthur Godfrey, Idaho, Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Kansas, Kentucky, Louisiana, Massachusetts, Mississippi, Missouri, Montana, Nebraska, New Hampshire, North Carolina, North Dakota, Oklahoma, South Carolina, South Dakota, Tennessee, Utah, Virginia, West Virginia, Wyoming. Not a liberal state in the bunch. And some of you still don't know who Arthur Godfrey was, do you? We have folks in our world, in our country, trying to push us toward a national health care system. We had Obamacare, which was exactly where that was taking us. Well, there are countries around the world that already have had, and for years, decades, generations. Great Britain is one, Canada is another. But now is an article coming out of Great Britain that says, quote, patients dying in hospital corridors, end of quote. That's the headline that appeared on the BBC's website last week, detailing the newest outrages which have emerged from Britain's crisis-beset healthcare system. Their national healthcare system is the butt of jokes, of criticisms, of condemnations from just about every segment of British society. I suppose except the progressives. Oh, and those who have money enough to get private care, they usually don't have to worry about it. This most recent revelation came as a result of an open letter sent to the Prime Minister by 68 senior doctors detailing the inhuman conditions which have become common. 300,000 patients made to wait in emergency rooms for more than 4 hours before being seen by any sort of medical person. Routine for suffering patients to be left in ambulances for long periods of time before being allowed into the hospital, let alone the emergency room. Routine for patients to be left on gurneys in corridors for as long as 12 hours before being offered proper beds, with many of them eventually being put into makeshift wards hastily constructed inside rooms. In addition to this, it was revealed that about 120 patients a day are being attended to in corridors and waiting rooms, with many being made to undergo humiliating treatments in the public areas of hospitals, and some even dying prematurely as a result. But not in America. Are you sure about that? We'll talk about it later. Do you know what Teddy Roosevelt knew? And we apparently do not. In a 1910 speech in Paris known as the Man in the Arena, Teddy Roosevelt outlined the 10 ways in which a good man, a good citizen, a good leader behaves. He says he avoids cynicism. He avoids cynicism. He participates in something before criticizing it. He recognizes and accepts life's realities. He doesn't put on a front and hide his weaknesses. He jumps into the fray and gets his hands dirty. He picks himself up after failure and keeps going. He devotes himself to worthy causes. He is enthusiastic about life. He refuses to be timid out of fear of failure. He does not isolate himself from the rest of the world. Did you know that Teddy Roosevelt was a progressive? American culture has come a long way in the opposite direction of this list. The majority actually praise the principles and processes that are represented by the other side in most of these points. It embraces the cynic and encourages broad criticism. It fosters isolation and a false image of life through social media. It teaches individuals to embrace timidity and victimhood. That's what our culture does, the progressives in our culture. What if we reversed our cultural acceptance of these things? I think we would begin to see the revitalization of a culture which respects both genders in an honorable way. But don't count on any of that happening any day soon.